Hello, all, or who is watching this. I am right now solo because a covert operation conducted by the Kremlin, by the FSB and Spetsnaz, has kidnapped my co-host and my guest. It looks like they both may be trying to. Yes, I see a cloud. Perhaps Ilya is there. Ilya, if you are there, make some motion and say something. Cannot hear. No, here. No, cannot hear you. He is trying, but again, the FSB are wily folks. I think they've cut his sound, but let me see. Maybe I can do something here. Nope, I can't do it right now. If you would all please join with me and send your energy to Ilya Ponomarev and help with his microphone and his sound, because it's not coming through right now.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Got you.
Yeah. I was not on the call, you know. As soon as you let me in, that's when you start
No. Well, listen, for those of you who may not know, which is probably most of my viewers, this is my friend Ilya Vladimirovich Ponomarev. I would like to say Здравствуйте, but there are those who don't like to speak Russian, so I would say hello.
Привет.
So, Привет is okay. And there's another stranger just released from custody by the FSB.
Yes.
Hello, Jonathan.
I'm out and about today, so it's a little bit of a not ideal location, but there we go.
Well, it's better than being in the bottom of Lubyanka, I guess.
Ilya, привет. Как дела?
Привет. Anyway,
glad to see you.
For those of you that are here, Ilya is our guest today. This is, I think, the fourth Jonathan in our new live stream series that we do every Wednesday. And Ilya was gracious enough to come on today. Jonathan and I have both spoken with him, interviewed him on our channel separately. And we're thrilled to have him here on our live stream. Brief introduction of Ilya, if you can bear with me for a moment. Ilya was a member of the Russian Duma, which is basically the Russian lower house of parliament from 2007 to 2016. A notable fact was that he was one of the few Russian representatives who voted against making being gay in Russia illegal. And he was the only representative that voted against the illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014. As a reward for this, as often happens in such situations, he was indicted for embezzlement, which in Russia very often is a politically motivated crime. He went in exile to Ukraine, where he became a Ukrainian citizen, I believe, in 2019. And as, again, a further reward for moving to Ukraine and supporting the Ukrainians, he had a warrant sworn out for his arrest. And I believe that, and you can correct me, yeah, if I'm wrong, you were indicted and arrested in absentia. So there is still a warrant out for you right now. Following the full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, in all seriousness, Ilya joined the Ukraine's territorial defense forces, where he fought in combat against Russian military forces in support of Ukraine. So for some of you out there who will say not nice things about the fact that Ilya was born in Russia, again, think about this. He moved to Ukraine. He became a Ukrainian citizen. He fought against Russian forces in support of Ukraine in combat. He's currently got a warrant out for his arrest by the Kremlin, so he's not exactly a friend, best forever friend of the other Vladimir. And the list goes on and on. He is a businessman who is involved in green enterprises, environmentally friendly businesses. He travels quite a bit. He can be seen on podcasts and at conferences all over the world. He works, as many others do, towards the day that Russia hopefully will get rid of Putin and work towards a more democratic form of government. So I won't say any more because you haven't paid me enough yet. So we'll just leave it at that.
Thank you
Jonathan,
very much for that kind of introduction. Yeah, thank you very much.
It's okay. And that's all I have to say. So you can leave now. Jonathan, if you could, please, I've monopolized the beginning enough.
No, fantastic. Great to see you again, Ilya. I'll kick off with the first question. There has been a lot of rumors circulating of potential coups in Moscow, but actually, on reflection, most of these seem to be either, either trolling or people getting their hopes up, or possibly even psychological operations. Is it naive to think that a coup is likely to topple Putin anytime soon?
Look, I think that the possibility of such an event could never be excluded. At the end of the day, like even back 100 years ago, the February Revolution of 1917 also was being created by people who were quite loyal to the Tsar and who didn't want to remove Tsarism as the political system. And they were all representatives of the, how we would say now, large businesses and large corporations of that time. And I definitely see a lot of growing discontent among Russian elites. There was a spike in 2022, then the combination of sanctions policies and Putin's own activities inside Russia actually helped him to restore their loyalty, and they were loyal and they remain loyal now. But for the last year, they're asking more and more questions, because many people believe that it was Russia who made everything possible to support Trump's re-election. And then Trump was making some advances and offers to the Russian president, which like virtually everybody in Russia believes, they're cool, we need to take them. And Putin is not taking them. And people are scared because now they don't understand how much longer this whole thing would drag and what to expect, and they don't understand the rationale. So this loyalty is visually declining. And just recently, there was basically an attempt to offset what Lavrov has said to Marco Rubio, after which the Budapest summit between Trump and Putin was cancelled, and Kirill Dmitriev, the guy who is coming from these liberal circles and who is managing National Investment Fund of Russia, went to the United States in an attempt to recover the relationship, but it didn't work. Nobody met him. And he was sending all these messages, that guys, we're ready to talk. But as the result, he had just to return back home. And today he said, at least a year, we will have to continue fighting. And obviously that doesn't put people in a very good mood. So I totally understand where these rumors are coming from.
In fact, he was accused of being a propagandist, I think, to his face on CNN. He's not used to people being, let's say, I'm going disrespectful, but he's not used to that. That must have come as quite a shock, not just to him, but to the people who dispatched him.
No, absolutely. It was very dismissive on behalf of Secretary Bessent. Dmitriev, he is one of the most experienced investment bankers in Russia. He is a wealthy businessman, very well respected in this regard. And being called a propaganda guy, that means that it's a piece of shit, and that's obviously was a huge disgrace for him personally.
Let me follow up on what Jonathan is saying. I have, of course, a ton of questions about that, as well as the elites, the sanctions, and so forth. Are you saying then that the sanctions are starting to get through to some of Putin's strongest supporters among the oligarch, or is it a combination of many, many different factors? The war, of course, that are actually starting to make them think that maybe they shouldn't put all their faith in Vladimir, and that maybe there has to be a future without him. What do you think is causing this newest current of unrest in and around the Kremlin?
No, in terms of the sanctions pain, I don't think that the recent developments actually add a lot to the fate of particular Russian businessmen, oligarchs, of Russian wealth. Because everything that could have happened mainly has happened already. And they were unhappy since 2022 about this, but a lot of their problems, they were personally compensated by Vladimir Putin, because he was basically taking some assets away from people who were disloyal, kind of nationalizing them, then the Western companies which were leaving Russia, and then they were given to those who are loyal. And that was a bit of a compensation, a payback, a kickback, from what's going on. And it kind of worked. This recent sanctions against Lukoil and Rosneft, obviously, Vakit Alikperov, the main shareholder in Lukoil, was unhappy. Rosneft is formerly a state-owned company, so it's not like a privately owned business. But these sanctions, they create an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty in general for everybody. It's like not that it was hitting the wallets of particular individuals. It's mainly a indication that Trump is serious and that there is no way out. Because these sanctions, it was something that Biden was afraid of applying. Biden's administration turned down this idea for a very long time, despite all the pressure and requests on behalf of Ukrainians and even some Europeans. They were afraid to touch this issue. Now Trump administration does. Plus, additionally, it looks like it is just the beginning, and the next step is to convince China and India to wind down the procurement of Russian oil and oil products. And that means serious problems for the Russian national budget, and then for the whole of the economy, and as the result, for all those wealthy. So they are just looking a little bit ahead of what's going on now, and yeah, they are extremely uncomfortable.
And the frozen assets as well. It looks like, that's still an ongoing story, but are we getting closer to those assets being used to plug the gaps in Ukraine's budget for the next 2 to 3 years? Does that also cause a degree of concern?
I wouldn't say that the question of frozen assets actually create a lot of discussions or concerns inside Russia, because psychologically this is something that is considered to be lost already for several years. And it's a question how they're going to be used. And nobody has any doubts that Europe in one way or another would still finance Ukraine. Whether they would tap into this particular resources, I even, like myself personally, not certain whether it's a good thing to do, because I am thinking about Ukraine's recovery after the war is over, and if there is no stash of money, I am concerned that Europeans may say, okay, so now the war is over, and you just survive somehow by yourself. This source of cash can significantly be drained, and these reserves, they kind of was a certain guarantee, a certain cushion for the future. But it definitely does not affect what people are thinking about in Russia. But the oil question does.
It's funny.
And of course, reconstruction. I'll get one in, and then David.
No.
Reconstruction. It's reconstruction. The quantity of investment is very much tied, actually, not so much to those assets, but to whether Ukraine gets its sovereign territories back and is a state, sort of whole and complete. If it has the sort of security and recover its sovereign territories, then surely, investment is going to be significantly higher anyway. And if it doesn't, then there's going to be lingering uncertainty.
I wouldn't say that I 100% agree with this because, like totally worst case scenario, Ukraine loses 4 regions plus Crimea. Like worst case scenario, that's the highest demand from Kremlin to give us Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. The rest of Ukraine stays, and it's anyway would be a situation of peace. Whether it's stable or not so stable, it's another question. But it would be a situation of peace, and it would be a necessity to rebuild a lot of destroyed facilities in Kharkiv, in Odessa, in many other Ukrainian cities. So there is a huge business anyway. Like Mr. Trump would say, a huge construction yard would materialize no matter what after it is over. And it is something that needs to be done by the state to provide funding for the basic infrastructure. The private businesses would come and build particular enterprises, but the basic roads, the residential, a lot of residential infrastructure, providing guarantees for the business to invest in the power plants and other long-paying assets. That's needs to have some financial cushion, and Ukraine doesn't have it after this war. So it needs to come from somewhere. And obviously, many people were saying that it would be either Russia's reparations or these frozen reserves, which would be used to pay for Russian reparations as the funding for this kind of things. And if they would not be in place, there was this idea of U.S.-Ukraine recovery fund with these critical minerals and whatever. But the way it is structured right now, it's dysfunctional.
Well, Ilya, tell me if this is true or not. Have you heard this? I heard that the money that Donald Trump is getting for the reconstruction or demolition of the ballroom is actually going to be a down payment on the reconstruction of Ukraine. And he's going to be funneling more money into Ukraine from the ballroom. Is this true?
Right now the White House looks more disrupted than Bankova in Kyiv.
Let me just say this. I always have to throw in a Trump thing. It's just the way I am. You had mentioned, Jonathan mentioned the frozen funds in Belgium, which I've talked and written about a lot. It really upsets me what's going on there. And you said that the Russian government and the Russian people, I think, have just accepted the fact they're not going to get the money back. So they're not counting on it. They're not even worried about it yet. The Belgians are really worried about it. They're worried about the laws and, how they're going to look. Their bankers are going to, do business in the future. It really, really upsets me. I don't want to say it pisses me off because Jonathan thinks that means I get drunk because that's the UK. I'm not pissed. I am pissed.
Demonetized, even worse.
Well, demonetized, pissed, whatever you want to call it. I'm angry. The hell with the Belgians, and the fact that NATO and the EU are allowing them, and Orban, to just have one problem. The Belgian bankers stopped the billions, 150 billion, I think, or more dollars and the euros to go to the Ukrainian reconstruction, or not even reconstruction, to help them survive right now. It really upsets me.
No, to be fair, this is a European problem, isn't it? Because what Belgium's asking for is for the risk to be collectivized across the community, and everyone's going, well, actually, no, thank you. So this is multiple European states shirking their duty. But Ilya, what do you make of it?
I fully agree with you. I think that's actually the key power behind this is not Belgium but France. And it's a lot about their financial links to the Middle East because they are very much afraid of the capital free that would be related to position of countries like Saudi Arabia, for example, because they could be vulnerable for political problems in the future. So they don't want to create this precedent and the uncertainty. And Belgium just happened to be at the front line because physically this repository is located in Belgium, but it's not their only sovereign position. And actually, I would say that on other fronts, Belgium is very helpful towards Ukraine as well as France. It's just that this is the question where they really are afraid. Frankly speaking, as I already said, I think it would be way wiser to actually keep these reserves for the future when the restoration needs to take place. And it's not that large of the money that Ukraine currently needs. It's a lot of question of efficiency how this money is being used. Because just like to give you an idea. 80% of casualties at the front line right now is because of the application of drones. The total expense of Ukraine's defense ministry on the drones and all these new military technologies is $5 billion. So for $5 billion pay for 80% of enemy casualties. So if there would be this 140, 160 billion unlocked, and 100 would go to the United States to procure more expensive arms, I'm sorry, it's in the majority, it's a wasted money. It would be way better to save them for future. Ukraine needs to double the expense on its own weapons production, and that's just 5 billion more. And Ukraine needs cash to pay for the social obligation and pay wages to its military. That's what is like really needed. That's what's for first priority. The rest could wait.
And of course, in Tomahawk cost versus Flamingo, I mean, quite apart from the discussion about what quantity really exists and how realistic is it, but the unit cost is dramatically lower for Ukrainian-produced munitions, whether it's the deep strike missiles or drones, than for Western equivalents. And of course, they're, from what we can tell, far more effective in some cases.
Absolutely, and with the Flamingos, the bottleneck is with engines. Production of engines is a high-tech production which you cannot do in Ukraine at the moment because of the war situation. That Russia just bombs whatever facilities are being created for this kind of purpose. So the engines, they need to be produced in Europe. And I would say that if Europeans would put a little bit of their own money in the production of engines on its own territory, which is beneficial for European defense, it's not just for Ukrainians. And if Europeans would put money for creation of different components, facilities for the same drones, as the engines, as propellers, as the batteries, which now are being supplied predominantly from China, then it would be a benefit for European economy because it's a good business, but it also would be beneficial for European national security, and it can save a lot of money that would go to Ukraine for the procurement of the ready-made arms.
You both made a couple of good points that I want to follow up on, which is the fact that the money, even if it's released today, for example, that the money in Belgium, Donald Trump, or at least the Americans, want that then to be turned around, and they want them to buy arms from the United States, which, as you just said, are vastly more expensive. Not only that, and I've talked about this recently, the United States, and to maybe a lesser degree, Europe, NATO, are focusing still on weapons that are fast becoming obsolete. The cutting edge is being done in Ukraine. As far as weapons technology, not just drones, everything that they're doing is out of necessity cheaper and cutting edge technology. What do you think would be the solution there if, in fact, let's cut America out of it? They're not going to buy American arms. Can Ukrainian arms companies, defense contractors, and scientists, the folks who work in development of arms, find a way or a place in Ukraine to manufacture what they need? Or can they be moved? And this has been discussed, I know, to a safe location in Europe, pay them to design and manufacture them in Europe, use the same funds or hopefully new funds from the Europeans, and let the Ukrainians make their own weapons, but in a safe environment?
Well, look, right now in Ukraine, there is plenty of our own production. And all those drones and a lot of other stuff is being produced inside Ukraine in the garage mode, in a very distributed mode, and it can be done this way. As I said, there are just particular components which require some heavy investment and safe places. And primarily we are talking about engines, all type of engines, but jet engines in particular, but even the small engines for the drones, you know, they also very much needed and very important. And that's
has that been
Ukraine
discussed,
can produce.
to have the technicians moved to Poland or Germany or France with the funds they need to make those engines and other components for the Flamingo, for example?
But there is no funds for this.
Say again, I'm sorry.
There is no funds for this. It's very simple. They would love to, but there is no funds for this.
What is happening, if you could tell me, with the construction of the factories for Rheinmetall from Germany? What's the progress on that? I know they are going to be building some defense industry, some factories in Ukraine. What do you know the status of that?
Well, you know, what's going on in Ukraine, I think it's progressing, but as everything what is happening with the large corporations, it's very slow. And again, with Rheinmetall, it's not only a question of the facility inside Ukraine, it's the question of facilities in Europe. And I know that their project in Romania, for example, with explosive has stalled and stuff like that. They're not in a hurry, you know. It's a large corp. You know, the beauty of Ukraine is that it's all been done by a vast number. Right now, Ukraine has several thousand of innovative startups. It's a true Silicon Valley of defense technologies, and they are producing a lot of different stuff. Many things which are needed as components for like small FPVs, they are not necessarily needed to be produced, say, in Europe. It just would be nice to have them in Europe, because Europe would benefit from this a lot. But at the end of the day, Ukrainians are buying the stuff from China, and it's what is called good enough. But some components like these jet engines, you know, we have nowhere to produce, and that requires some investment, and there are just simply no producers lined up for this.
And that's the same as the interceptors, isn't it? That's why you've got a British-Ukrainian co-partnership to produce those. But again, whether the timescales are meaningful for them being produced at scale is another thing. And Ilya, what do you make of, you know, a couple of my sort of colleagues in this space have been talking quite obsessively recently about the need for Ukraine to have the capability to strike Russian drone factories, so to take out Russian facilities at some degree of scale. And of course, they're at great distance as well from the actual front line.
Well, you know, I think that the situation is very much symmetrical in Russia and in Ukraine. And judging by Russia's inability to shut down Ukrainian drones production, I have serious doubts that we will be able to shut down Russian drones production. To hurt it significantly, definitely yes. And traditionally in Russia, people tend to create larger facilities to put them in one place because they have more money, you know, and they kind of feel safer. But okay, after a couple of strikes, they would learn to decentralize and also to put them in different garages, so it would be back to where we stand right now. What I think is like badly needed, and what Ukraine is not doing at the moment, and there are reasons for this, different reasons, is an ability to strike Moscow. Because at the end of the day, the decision about whether to continue fighting or to stop the war has been done on the political level. And Moscovites right now, they don't feel the pain. They don't feel the war. They live in the normal, even superior European city with large, nice infrastructure of cafes, restaurants, all the nice places to go to. And that's why if we look at the different polls, then we see that who are the most aggressive at the moment. The biggest warmongering place in Russia right now is Moscow, which is totally different from what it was 5 years ago, because Moscow was always the most opposition-minded place in Russia, the most anti-Putin place in Russia. Right now, it's kind of like the most pro-Putin place in Russia. And why is that? It's because others feel the war and Moscow does not. And that's why the question of organizing blackouts in Moscow, in actually attacking the administrative buildings in Moscow, in attacking Ministry of Defense in Moscow. Maybe it's not as important in the military sense as attacking a particular factory, etc. But I think it would be a very powerful step towards the ceasefire.
And are there enough people in Moscow reaping some financial reward, reaping some reward in terms of increased status from supporting the war? What are the dynamics behind that change, let's say, getting behind the war?
Well, obviously, all the beneficiaries are in Moscow, and their names are known, where they live is known. It's all transparent, so you can attack them. It's just that in the previous U.S. administration, Jack Sullivan, Bill Burns, and the president himself, they were very much against of opening such a Pandora box because they thought that it would be a true escalation. But that's the escalation which is actually needed, because these guys are the real beneficiaries of the war. And it's totally in line with all the international rules of war. They are not civilians. They are the combatants. They are the sponsors of the war. And obviously they need to be attacked.
And the middle classes, the sort of proto-middle classes, professional classes, are they financially benefiting from the situation, or are they starting to feel a pinch, let's say, from what's going on?
I think that during last 35 years, the biggest economic growth was during the years of war, because it was this Keynesian effect on the economy. The money started to come. It was a big financial pump into the economy. So obviously everybody benefited because the money was coming as wages for the ordinary guys who took the contract and went on fighting, as well as for the middle class and the wealthy, which are the owners of different companies which benefit from this situation. It was the largest construction boom in Russia. It was the largest consumption boom in Russia. So obviously everybody benefited from this, and that's why they don't rebel.
During World War II, the Allies eventually decided on total war. They bombed indiscriminately. They did what they felt they had to do. I am not advocating that NATO or Ukraine pursue total war against Russia. However, you did in one of your statements, in fact, I think I'm calling this live stream, "We Must Capture the Kremlin." I would like you to discuss that, if you mean that metaphorically, realistically, that actually needs to be captured. I know you have said many times, Putin needs to go. Russia's not going to progress anywhere towards any kind of democratic nation with Putin still in power. What do you feel like? You just mentioned that Ukraine doesn't really have the ability to strike Moscow that much. They have, but it's not having any effect. Do you believe that if they are able to produce the parts, the engines and so forth for the Flamingos, or if they do eventually get Tomahawks, they should target the hell out of Moscow as far as administrative, not just military, but administrative offices, and pursue a quasi total war against Russia, and do what they have to do to make the Muscovites see the lights and turn against Putin?
Well, look, I am against, as you say, total war, because I think that targeting just civilians, it's inhumane and it's wrong, and it's against all the international conventions of war.
Yes.
That's why I'm not.
It doesn't work that well either. It
Yeah,
doesn't bring people's spirit.
Yeah, it would vice versa. It would
Has the
mobilize
opposite
people,
effect very often.
people, against. No, but what I'm saying is that we should attack those wealthy which benefit from this war, the stakeholders of this war, and this is the top bureaucracy which organizes this war, including Putin's residences itself. And their residences of the wealthy, the governors of different regions, and I can say that actually ordinary Russians would applaud this, because they feel alone confronting, those of power. They don't see that anybody is helping them. They think that they are to suffer anyway. They've been sent to the front lines. They would receive less social care as the result of sanctions. So they would take the pay, take the toll of this war, but they are not being protected by no one. No one is their ally. And that's why if Ukraine or the West would actually join the fight against Russian oligarchy, I think that people would be very happy, and they would actually may switch sides. A lot of them may say that finally.
I want to follow up on this, because I think it was brilliant, as Jonathan would say, brilliant. I like that. What do you mean by we need to capture the Kremlin? I mean, again, what would you like to see happen if you had, or Ukraine had, the capability?
Obviously, at the end of the day, I want to see gallows at the Red Square with Putin and his gang hanging there. That's for sure, as the war criminals. After something like Nuremberg process, but in Moscow this time, or it can be done in Kiev. I don't care, but nevertheless, the result is the same. And I think there would be thousands, if not millions, of people who would come and applaud for this outcome, because Russians are tired of this regime as well, and the majority of Russians, they're kind of resigned that they have to live with them, because they don't see how they can change the regime, and they trying to adapt, and they're not speaking up, and they're not rebelling. But it's because it's what we call a syndrome of learned impotence, because they don't see the way out. So they need to see an ally. They need to see a powerful ally which is on their side.
And that's one of the challenges, isn't it? Because if we look at all the crimes of the Soviet regime, if you look at all the crimes of, the various invasions, 1968, 1956, Afghanistan, Chechnya, if we look at all of the innumerable crimes that have taken place, not a single person has been brought to justice. Not a single one has been tried for any of these obscenities. So what are the chances that this is ever going to, the impunity is ever going to meet with let's spell it out, Russians who've committed extraordinary atrocities?
I 100% agree with this. And when it was the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, I also was campaigning for a trial, for illustration at least, but nothing like this happened. And it didn't happen for a reason, because it was the same people who were part of that regime who just changed colors, some of them, but they stayed in power. And that's also contributed a lot to this syndrome of learned impotence, because what the ordinary people said, okay, so everything, we try to change everything, but nothing has changed. And moreover, the West actually supported those bastards, who just
Yes,
like
absolutely.
change the colors. When they were shooting the legitimately elected parliament in 1993, there was actually Bill Clinton who applauded and say like, "Well done."
The
And
1996 referendum, where we
and
sent in our own polittechnology to make sure Yeltsin stayed in power, who then
yeah.
appointed Putin. So.
Yes, absolutely. So but Putin is a logical continuation of Yeltsin's regime, and that's why people are saying so. Nothing is changing. It's the same KGB officer which was back 50 years ago. So Soviet Union is gone with all the social benefits it had, but in terms of people in power, they are the same. In the Soviet Union, at least they were contained in terms of their wealth and what they can and cannot do. Right now, they are not contained at all, and they are creating a kind of aristocracy for themselves when, sons supersede their fathers and then grandsons supersede their sons, so where are we? It's only getting worse. That's why they are not rebelling. That's the main reason.
Well, the fact that we didn't have the Nuremberg-like trials, as you said, in 1991 or 1996 or ever, is why we're where we're at right now. I mean, that's just a fact. That's just it. And if we don't learn from that, and I'm not sure we are, it's just going to continue. We are going through something here in this country right now, which we don't have time for in this live stream, of course. But unless the people in power that have done the evil, that have committed the atrocities and the war crimes are held accountable, nothing will change. You've just said that.
Just
but
broken basic law and due
that.
process. I mean, let's start with law and due process. And there's enough violations of that going on in the US.
Oh, absolutely. I happen to say that we should have Nuremberg trials here when MAGA is voted out of power, and I was roundly denounced by MAGA, of course, and told, "How dare you say something like that?" For our dear Republicans that are in power. So it's very difficult to hold those that are in power into account unless they lose their power. If they don't, and they just change flags or names, it's never going to stop.
It's a universal problem, by the way. I would say that for the whole of the world, the rise of populism, it doesn't matter left-wing populism, right-wing populism, it's the reaction of ordinary people against inability to change their lives in the democratic way. So they just like saying "fuck you" to the authorities. Pardon my language. It's just their way of showing the middle finger. And if they are not responsible, they don't think that the situation will change. Why they should be careful about their choices? It's just that they want to make their choice as disruptive as possible, and that's what's happening.
Of course, and that's when
people. Of course, it gets worse.
That's when authoritarians step up. I mean, they're not stupid. They may be evil people, but they're not stupid. They see that the people, at least half the people or more, are very, very dissatisfied, and they alone can fix the problem. I think Trump actually wrote a book about that. I alone can solve this. And that's when they step in. Hitler did it. Mussolini, they all do that. That's right out of a dictator's playbook, and we're experiencing that here right now. Russia's had that forever. Europe is going through that in most of the countries right now. I don't know the answer to that except fix all the problems in our countries, and that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Yeah, you're right. I am obviously very hopeful that as the result of this horrible tragedy that we live in right now, there would be a window of opportunity for Russia to experience a radical change and to get rid of the existing elites. I think that at the end of the day, like no matter what, but this window would open. But like even to use this opportunity, we need to fight and fight a lot.
Ilya, how important is America in what you just said? I get told many, many times that, Europe should just accept the fact that America is out of it. And I have to agree for the most part. But how important is the support or the support of democracy important for America and the world. Is Russia ever going to change? Is there ever going to be enough force, military force, political force, soft power, diplomatic power for the Europeans to force Russia to change? Certainly the Russian people on their own aren't going to be able to do this. So again, my question is, in your opinion, how important is America to change, good change, positive change within Russia?
No, frankly speaking, I am very skeptical that somebody can interfere in our internal affairs and can help us to do the positive change.
Oh, I have to stop you only because I don't mean that. I don't mean covert action. I don't mean the CIA going in like they fucked up for many, many years in the past. Excuse my language. I don't mean that at all. I mean by the very strong, vociferous support of democracy by the United States, soft power, diplomatic power, not going in with the CIA undercover or the military threatening. I mean, how important is it for America to be stable and to support democracy and be an example to other countries, including a new Russia? How important is that? Or is that gone? Is that the past and it's not going to influence anybody in the future?
No, obviously it is very important. But I would say that I already many times said this in public, that for our fight, the Trump administration is so much better than the previous one, because the previous one actually did a lot of conscious effort to stop us, to prevent us from action, to tie our hands. And they were asking Ukrainians to stop supporting us. They were asking other countries not to support us. So they did a lot of problems for us, a lot of harm. This administration just doesn't care, and that's so much better, I can tell you.
I guess you're right.
Here's it's going to be my. Sorry.
Yeah, and also, I think that when you are dealing with somebody who has a transactional approach, a pragmatic interest, it's always easier, because you know what to expect. You know what you see is what you get, and to work with this administration, for me, it's way easier than it was before. And right now we have one particular objective, is to make Ukrainian defense technologies global. That would open a lot of new windows of opportunities for us in what we do, and that's why that's my main focus at the moment.
And this is going to be my last question, Dave, because I'll have to jump out in a second. But you talk about soft power, and it seems to me really interesting, because for us, soft power would include all sorts of things, including cultural institutions, maybe NGOs that will support democratic groups and so on. We label it soft power. We think of it as soft power. We know that there is a connection between the state and often foreign policy and soft power NGOs. Is it not the case, Ilya, that Putin and his sort of KGB cabal, they see all soft power as hard power? They don't make the distinction. They see every intrusion by the West and its institutions as an instrument of hard foreign policy and aggressive.
In the word soft power, the key word should be power and not soft. And when Kremlin exercises soft power, for them it is power, because they know what they're doing it for. They have a particular objective for each of the hybrid operation that they are planning. They put in particular objectives for Russia Today, for Russian World Institute, for elections collusion. They know what they try to achieve. They fail in many times, but at least
even the Hermitage and cultural outreach, same stuff. Yeah,
even there, they know what they're shooting for. The American soft power, for many years, it was unfortunately just an idea of supporting some nice people. To be exact, people who are in charge of distributing money think are nice. And whether it was useful, not useful, There was no accounting. There was no feedback. There were no KPIs, and the results, they are not even minimal. They are in many cases negative, because I am judging by the Russian grant recipients audience. Usually, these are people who are not trying to get to power. They actually benefit from the permanent struggle. And that's why I personally was very glad when USAID was disbanded. I think it's a very progressive thing that this administration has done.
Well, as I always like to say about Trump, he is like a clock. He is right twice a day, no matter what.
Yes.
Broken clock.
Yes.
And that's okay, because a broken clock, you could say at those 2 hours, I gotcha. There's no ambiguity. I've said a lot about Biden. He is not my favorite president. I don't want to go off on that tangent, but yeah, he ruins a lot of things, including what's going on right now with Ukraine. We wouldn't be speaking if President Biden did the right thing by Ukraine. It would be all over. So
we'll be speaking in Kremlin,
well,
instead of Tucker Carlson,
Absolutely. I would be doing an interview with you on Red Square, maybe. I don't know.
By the gallows, yes.
Absolutely. After they move the gallows out of the way, yes, of course. But no, I agree with you. Look, Trump, and I hate to say this, and please don't attack me, my viewers, Trump has done some good things. I believe it's not intentionally. Again, he just happens to fall into it, or at the time he sees that it's good for him. That's okay. I don't care why he does the right thing, as long as he does the right thing. And I don't disagree with you about U.S. aid. There's been a lot of money wasted for the wrong reasons with our so-called soft power over the years, that probably being one of them. I do support a lot of our NGOs, though. I don't see Russia as ever having supported any countries that they didn't see as an immediate benefactor for them that was going to help them, where, wrongly or not, American NGOs have actually tried to help some of the downtrodden nations become stable. And I call that my liberal self. I think that's a good thing.
No, right. I think that United States, unfortunately, in terms of this regime change exercises, has a certain anti-Midas touch for many years.
Oh yeah.
But that's their problems, and that's your problems, and that's your taxpayers' money.
Yes.
To control, I care about what's going on in Russia and in Ukraine, and I definitely see that there could be a lot of positive things done, which would be in the national interest of my country as well as in the national interest of the United States, but they were never done, unfortunately.
My last question here is, I still have the impression I've had since 2016, that Russia is tipping money into extreme voices, extremist parties, figures in Western countries especially, and including Britain, that are designed to disrupt and divide. Now, I don't have demonstrable evidence that, say, Reform is taking Russian money, but we did have a court case recently where a key person in Farage's previous political parties and for a short time Reform was taking money to spread Russian narratives. So this seems to be an ongoing point of extreme risk for our democracies. They didn't invent all our problems, but they're busy tipping petrol onto the flames.
No, 100%. And Russia did play during Scotland's referendum. Russia did play during Brexit's referendum. Russia did support Farage. Russia did support Le Pen. Russia supports AfD. Russia supports many other political forces all across Europe. I wouldn't say that it's something to blame those particular parties for, because they just taking donations. They are staying on their agenda, which was there no matter what, even without Russia. In many cases, in some cases, I think certain politicians, they do say certain things on request, but in most cases, they're just staying on their usual position. Russia's objective is very simple: is to create turmoil, to seed discontent, and to create splits in the West, so that there is no united front against it. And that's a very clear objective. And again, to seed house, it's usually easier than to promote some positive agendas. That's why they are quite successful in that.
Ilya, what's the feeling right now? No, you have to go, Jonathan.
Jump there. You guys
the last
carry on, and my channel will carry on seeing it as well, so they won't miss anything.
Well, jump
Ilya,
off.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Cheers. Ilya, I wanted to ask, what is the feeling right now, in your opinion, within the, I guess, the administration in Kyiv towards the continued support of Donald Trump? Is his animosity towards Putin a temporary thing again? Because he changes his mind often. Or do you really feel that this is a tipping point? Has he had it with Putin? Is he disgusted? Is he offended? Is he going to do what he says and keep the new round of sanctions, especially, like you said, against the major oil companies? Is he going to continue to support Ukraine, whether or not with the Tomahawks, with intelligence sharing? Where do you see the future of Trump's support for Ukraine going right now?
Well, I think that we need to say that, firstly, Trump was never a friend of Ukraine, but it was never a friend of Putin either. Trump is pursuing his own interests and the interest of the United States the way he sees them, and he really wants to achieve peace no matter what. And he doesn't care for the cost. He doesn't care, about the territorial losses, gains, whatever. To him, it's a secondary thing. He genuinely wants peace. He definitely doesn't want Ukraine to lose. He doesn't care whether Russia wins or loses, but he needs peace, and he wants to achieve it quickly. He is obviously is greatly disappointed in Putin, because he thought that he would behave more rationally in this sense, but he doesn't understand that Putin needs something which he can declare as his victory inside the country, and he cannot do it by just declaring a ceasefire along the current front line, because it means that he achieved nothing. That's why Putin is demanding at least Donetsk region to be given to him, but he is ready to make concessions on this way. It's just that because Trump is in a hurry, Putin is using this fact as a leverage against Trump, and that's why we cannot come to a certain conclusion. But to me, again, Trump willingly, unwillingly, but he is doing the right thing, and if we at the end of the day, again, we will come to the situation when at least eastern flank of NATO countries like Poland, Baltic states, Romania, Slovakia would rearm and would fortify their borders, and Ukraine can participate and benefit from this. I think it would be the right thing, and I think that Trump understands it very well.
Many people, most people perhaps in the West, I have to say, including me, believe that even if such a peace deal were arranged between Putin and Zelensky, meaning that Ukraine agreed to allow Russia to maintain the currently occupied areas in the Donbass that Russia currently occupies, that Putin would not stop there, that he would take that time to rearm, to reorganize, and eventually he would move on the rest of Ukraine and possibly into the eastern flank of Europe. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think that Putin would restart the war with Ukraine. I think that Putin will go to Europe. Putin needs NATO to collapse. That's his objective. And he would pursue this objective. And unfortunately, he has many chances to achieve this, because right now, Baltic states are pretty defenseless, and even Poland, which has a great army, is not ready for the modern day fight, and he knows it. And he can start his offensive against those countries at any given moment, even without stopping in Ukraine. But if he stops in Ukraine, this definitely would be even easier for him.
And what do you believe? What do you believe Putin's belief is if he attacked, say the eastern flank, the Baltic countries? Do you think that Putin believes that that NATO would not respond in kind? That, for example, America would not support NATO if Putin moved against the Baltic countries? Is that what you think Putin is counting on?
I think that there would be a reaction, like sending airplanes from the distance, but he doesn't believe that NATO would be able to actually defend Lithuania, say, or Latvia. They don't believe that citizens of Western nations would be ready to die and to pay with their blood for the independence of Lithuania. That's his main calculus, and unfortunately, I think that he is right. And that's why we need to help those countries to defend themselves. And I'm very much sorry, I need to switch off also.
No, that we're out of time. Ilya, thank you so much. You keep yourself safe, and let's talk again soon.
Thank you very much. It was always my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You take care.